From KMOV, this is News 4 at 10.
A live look from Ferguson. Tonight, there are major developments in the deadly police shooting that killed an unarmed teenager. You see that picture after days of riots and violence. Now a much different feel on the streets of Ferguson. We've also learned the next steps in the investigation of Mike Brown's death. And on the ground right now, the Reverend Jesse Jackson has showed up.
Civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Jackson waded into the crowd of protesters outside the Quick Trip on West Florissant. That, of course, has become ground zero for the protest. Reverend Jackson stopped at a memorial cross and also led the group in prayer.
But let's begin with the question so many are asking tonight. Why? Why did Ferguson Police Chief Tom Jackson release surveillance video of a convenience store robbery allegedly showing Mike Brown as the perpetrator?
The chief admitting this is not connected to the shooting death of Brown some 10 minutes later. In fact, he says his officer, Darren Wilson, didn't know Brown was a suspect, that he stopped Brown and his friend Dorian Johnson for something else, walking in the middle of the street, blocking traffic.
So why are we showing the footage tonight? Context, insight into the minutes preceding Brown's death. As for the Ferguson chief, here's his reason.
What I did was release the videotape to you because I had to. I've been sitting on it, but too many people put in FOI requests for that thing, and I had to release that tape to you.
So Chief Jackson says he had no choice. Mike Brown's family not buying it, pushing back hard all day.
He had facts and information he could release that we're all interested in, but yet he chose to talk about something to darken up this man's past.
We believe that he strategically did that to assassinate the character of Michael Brown.
And now the timing, releasing the tape has changed the mood on the ground among the crowds in Ferguson.
Chris Stanford is live at that Quick Trip on West Florissant. And Chris, what are you seeing right now?
Steve and Sharon, we've seen so far a peaceful release of what demonstrators and protesters are describing as new anger and new frustration. A lot of protesters and demonstrators here telling me they believe it was bad timing on the part of Ferguson police to try and criminalize Michael Brown. As demonstrations beat on in Ferguson, the underlying tone has changed.
It pissed them off. It pissed them off, and for one reason it did, because it muddied the waters.
The anger comes from Ferguson Police Chief Tom Jackson accusing Michael Brown of robbing a box of cigars at the same time as the chief released the name of the officer who shot Brown.
What he did was he enraged the community more by releasing a name and then trying to say, well, hey, here's the name, but we're going to discredit Mike Brown at the same time.
Chief Jackson said he did it this way to release the rest of the information from his department at the request of the media.
Because you asked for it. You asked for it. I held it for as long as I could.
What's it like here tonight compared to before?
I'm surprised. I'm absolutely surprised. I'm surprised it's not worse than what it is.
This mom from St. Charles said she finally felt it was safe enough to bring her child.
We're talking to each other about how much we love our children and how much we want our children to thrive and survive in this world.
Others warn the scene here in Ferguson could turn.
A lot of people haven't seen the video yet, and I feel like once they see it, it's going to be a problem.
All right, live back here out on West Florissant outside of the Quick Trip. The streets are lined with people with signs, the demonstrators with signs, and also right in the middle of the street, right out here at the intersection. Really, the protests have resembled more of a party up to this point. You can count on us to monitor the situation overnight. We're live in Ferguson. Chris Stanford, News 4.
Mike Brown's family admits it is his likeness on that surveillance tape from the convenience store robbery, but his cousin says Brown's past, even recent past, has nothing to do with the circumstances of his death.
So whatever that took place there had nothing to do with an individual getting down on his hands and knees, raising his hands in the air and saying, "Don't shoot." This is a universal call for I surrender. And I can hear my cousin's voice right now as I speak saying, "Don't shoot."
New tonight, the FBI has released the next steps into its investigation of Mike Brown's death. In the coming days, agents will canvass the Ferguson neighborhood where the shooting occurred, looking for witnesses who may have information but have not yet come forward. The FBI asking for the public's cooperation and patience as the investigation is ongoing. If you know something, call the FBI directly. You can find that phone number at KMOV.com. The man who shot Mike Brown, Officer Darren Wilson. Who is he? Here's what we know about Wilson so far. He's a 6-year veteran, 4 of those years on the Ferguson force, 2 working in Jennings. In February, Wilson was awarded for extraordinary effort in the line of duty. The Ferguson chief described Wilson this way.
He's a gentleman, he's a quiet officer, and he has been an excellent officer for the police department.
The chief says Wilson is now distraught by the shooting of Mike Brown.
My name is Brian Barksdale. This week I have been through hell. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, though.
One of the many voices of Ferguson. This is the scene in Ferguson where tonight there is a much different feel in city streets. Last night the Highway Patrol took control of the police response on those streets. Tonight's plan is one that includes minimal troopers and giving demonstrators room to protest. But there have been threats of violence on social media. Russell Kinsall has been talking with protesters on West Florissant all evening. Russell, what have you seen and heard out there?
There is a real spirit of community and cooperation out here. Lots of honking horns and signs, but it's a friendly, peaceful crowd. There's been a dramatic change out here, but it did not start off as smoothly as we were first told.
Last night was a great night. It was a great night. There was no calls for service. We did not deploy tear gas.
Thursday night was dramatically different, but we learned there were crimes committed, but no one was arrested. Did police pull back so far they left residents unprotected? A fight at the McDonald's on West Florissant led to rocks thrown at police, and a woman was shot in the leg in a Ferguson neighborhood away from the protests. Captain Ron Johnson told me by phone he meant to say there were no major incidents and that police are still responding to crime and protecting citizens. Those citizens are happy about the changes in tactics.
Well, the tear gas, I couldn't breathe. I'm asthmatic.
The crowd was so calm that Reverend Jesse Jackson felt it more than safe enough to visit protesters, and a light rain couldn't dampen spirits of protesters who filled the streets and sidewalks.
It's very peaceful. No one is really trying to cause a riot or anything. We're just trying to get a message across.
We just have to be here and enjoy the atmosphere. Completely nonviolent, everybody loving each other.
Corey Black came to pass out water.
It's different because this is the way it's supposed to be. And the way that it had been for the past 2 days was totally against how actual protest in America should be.
There have been speakers at the Quick Trip who have reminded the crowd about injustices against African Americans with some pretty harsh language for police and the news media, but it hasn't changed the mood nor the peaceful method of protest out here tonight. Live in Ferguson, Russell Kinsall, News 4.
And we had some light rain move through Ferguson tonight, and there is more rain on the way.
Steve Templeton tracking the latest round of rain.
Another little batch coming in here from West County into St. Louis area, and then you look back off to the northwest. There's more rain, several rounds of showers, and even some thunderstorms eventually this weekend. I'll break it all down for you coming up.
A developing story in South St. Louis County. Right now, firefighters on the scene after a fire broke out at an apartment complex. This is all happening in Afton near River de Pere Boulevard at Old English Road, just north of New St. Marcus Cemetery. We're told the fire now under control. There are no reports of anyone being hurt.
First, there's no legal authority for the governor to step in and do that. Second, there was no practical reason for the governor to step in and do that.
So did the governor have political motivation for jumping in front of what the county prosecutor says was under control?
Now let's go back live to Ferguson right now. Peaceful demonstrations there. Reverend Jesse Jackson on the ground. And the overall feel, the mood, we've been told, it's much calmer, much different. More when we come right back.
My name is Charles Davis. I'm the owner of Ferguson Burger Bar and More. This community right now is at a outrage, which is trying to stay peaceful, but with not getting the results in which we feel that we should be getting. They're just at an outrage.
This is News 4 at 10.
We have a farmer's market, and there's new construction new restaurants and just different things like that. We have bike races for the community. We have runs and the food trucks come out on Monday. And that's been the reality that I've lived in for the last 6 years, which is much different than the things that are happening now. The conclusion that I think we can all kind of come to is maybe there are two different Ferguson that are existing at the same time.
After days of violence and looting, frustration is boiling over in Ferguson.
Today, Governor Nixon faced tough questions because of it.
Why was your response to this situation delayed?
On Monday, I asked for a Department of Justice investigation, Monday. On Tuesday, I appeared in the community. On Wednesday, I appeared in the community.
This is Governor Nixon's Katrina.
The governor has also faced criticism from local lawmakers. Yesterday, we told you about State Senator Maria Chappelle-Nadal's vulgar tweet directed at the governor. St. Louis County Prosecutor Bob McCullough standing by his criticism of Governor Nixon, and tonight calls for a special prosecutor to take over the Michael Brown case from McCullough. I spoke with McCullough today. He told me Governor Nixon had no legal authority to take tactical police control from St. Louis County and hand it over to the State Highway Patrol. McCullough told me a plan was already in place for a shift in police tactics before the governor came to town. County Executive Charlie Dooley among those calling for a special prosecutor.
And I think if his objectivity is in question, he's a part of the problem. We need to remove that problem so we can get to a solution.
I mean, there's always going to be some criticism out there, but you know, I'm a big kid. I've got broad shoulders. I can take it.
According to Missouri Attorney General Chris Koster, state law prevents him or the governor from replacing McCullough as the head of the investigation. Only a judge can appoint a special prosecutor.
Well, for days now, demonstrators have marched down the streets of Ferguson calling for justice in Mike Brown's death. But the shooting has also united people across the country. Take a look. These are just a few of the rallies that happened today around the country. Marches happening from New York to California, Wisconsin to Texas. In Chicago, demonstrators called it a day of rage, but protests were peaceful. And many are asking when Mike Brown's funeral will be. Right now, plans for the service, they're on hold. After police released Brown's body, Brown's family had a second autopsy performed. And the family is asking the Justice Department now to conduct a third autopsy. And hopes are that the funeral will happen the weekend of August 23rd. When plans are released, News 4 will, of course, bring them to you. Steve?
Sharon, Mike Brown's family is asking for the public support to attend a rally on Sunday. It's scheduled for 3 o'clock at Jefferson Memorial on the Arch grounds. Last night's rally at the Arch was one of the most diverse and most peaceful we've seen. Thank you for joining us. Doug Vaughn will have Sports Friday coming up next. We're going to leave you with another live look at Ferguson and what's going on near the Quick Trip on West Florissant. Another night of protests, but for the second night right now, peaceful protests.
Thanks for